Hey everybody, this is Editing Matt. It's currently 6:47 in the morning, and I just finished wrapping up the editing for our most recent episode. I just wanted to come in real quick and apologize. There is a lot of coughing throughout the episode, a lot of sniffling, some weird cuts to try and get some of that out. I was I got really fucking sick after we had recorded our Christmas special, and when we were recording this one, I was still coming down from being ill, so I had a lot of mucus and a rough throat. So if I sound a little off in the episode and all the coughs and stuff, I apologize. I've since recovered, and we're currently planning the next episode. So I hope you enjoy, and I'm going to be passing the mic on to Past Matt and Past Roger. See ya.
Coming to you live from CBT Studios in the heart of Roseville, California. I'm your host, Matt, and joined with me as always is my co-host,
Roger.
And this is the Cryptid vs. Cryptid podcast. Now play that boisterous music. Keeping up the New Year's schedule, hopefully.
We'll see how long that lasts, but we should be good.
Yeah, I think that'll be my New Year's resolution, is to try and keep up on our 2-week schedule as best as possible.
Yeah.
I think next episode, though, will be the 1-year anniversary of Cryptid versus Cryptid.
Yeah.
Or at least it should be pretty damn close.
It might be like a day off, but by the time they hear it, it'll be on it.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it was up on like a weekend day or like a Friday or something. Mm-hmm. So it'll be out when it correlates with our schedule, but I'm thinking we should do something for our 1-year anniversary. Either just like a more casual, laid back talking episode, or do one of the ideas we had sitting in the back of the bank. Mm-hmm. A certain revisit concept.
I was about to say I had an idea for one.
But either way, I think a special episode for 1-year anniversary would be cool. Especially because it's been 1 year, and that's insane. Which, over that 1 year of time, we've had many people follow us, and because of it, we've hit over 2,500 downloads.
We're everywhere besides Africa.
Another New Year's resolution. Break into the African listening bubble, I guess you could call it. But yeah, so thank you. That is insane. It's only been a year and we're already at 2,500. Oh, well, we're a margin over 2,500 now.
We're kind of approaching more 3,000.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next big goal, but it shouldn't be too far as long as we keep up the pace doing this. Mm-hmm. Also, one more personal special shout out to Madison. Dakota told me you started listening to the show and you really like it. So we hope you continue listening and that you get more invested in what we do here. And as always, a special thank you to everybody. A few things that I changed and never really announced was we have an Instagram, Cryptid vs. Cryptid on Instagram. I post on there more frequently than any other social media we've attempted.
Then Twitter with 3 followers.
Yep, it still just recommends me Twitter posts in other languages that I can't read. But that one is a lot more active. We have a lot bigger following. So if you do want to reach out to me or any of us, that is the best place to go and try and do it. I'm thinking if we don't do like a review or a revamp or something like that of an old episode for our 1-year anniversary, mm-hmm. we could do just like a chill, like how we did for the 1,000 downloads.
Yeah.
And then we could do like a Q&A of sorts. So if you do want to ask us any questions for a possible Q&A podcast episode, go over to Instagram, comment on our most recent post, or just DM the account. I'll be there. I'll take your questions. We can talk. Also, Discord is free. Go into the description of this. You can find the join code. I am pretty sure it permanently works. That's what I set it to in the options. So if you want to join in on the fun and discussion, come over there. We're always happy to welcome new people and really get the conversation started on what we do here. And with all that out of the way, I think it's time we hop into today's topic.
Yep, the Ratman versus Owlman.
Yeah, we've really went and scraped the bottom of the barrel this week. Now, I think we'll start off with Ratman. Probably he's up there in the echelon of there's really no information on him.
And it's also that it's kind of like a, not really Goatman situation, more of Goatman situation of multiple stories that are connected to him, but these are like differing from far apart.
Also, a special little connection to make here. This week, with both cryptids, we venture over the seas into England to discuss our cryptids.
We are now away from America, finally.
I mean, we've moved past, but this is like completely.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Ratman history. Looking over the seas of the Americas, you can find many terrifying cryptids hiding in the shadows. One of which makes its home in the underpasses of Southend, Essex, in England. This creature has come to be known as the Ratman and haunts these areas, seemingly chasing and or devouring anybody who passes through at night. The Ratman has two different origins that are very different from each other. One believes that he is a benevolent spirit that is haunting the tunnels, while another is similar to that of the Jersey Devil, in which a child is born into a rat form and resides in a labyrinth within the tunnel. Could the legends of this humanoid rat creature be true, or are these tales that the local grade school children tell one another so they will be scared on their way back home?
So, to elaborate on those backstories, it's a subway station, right, that he haunts, I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was like a
tunnel.
I know it's like a tunnel. I don't think it's like a subway station, though. I think it's kind of just like a tunnel underpass.
Yeah.
Like a pathway kind of thing.
Kind of like under a bridge.
They're weird over there.
But that one, I believe it's from a homeless man, and some group of teenagers decided to pull a prank on him and steal his blanket and any covering he had from the cold. And so he died of the cold, and the essence of the dead body kind of attracted a mob of rats to eat him. And so now his soul resides there as kind of like a haunting spirit of sorts.
Didn't they also just beat the shit out of him?
They might have, yeah. There's been multiple depictions of it.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I think why the kid got like deformed was more of for the father. It's more of like a curse on the father, because it was back in like 1700s, I think, and the father committed adultery, and so he got cursed, and as the curse, his newborn child kind of had a Jersey Devil feel, where it kind of slowly morphed into a rat.
Yeah, and then got kind of banished into the underpass. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if that isn't a tale to stay loyal, then I don't know what is. But yeah, one thing that I did find interesting, which was totally unintentional on our part, I mean, we just pick random cryptids, and it just so happened that these two have a lot of similarities with each other, but also with other cryptids. We'll cover the other one later, and you'll obviously see a very similar resemblance to something else we've talked about. But here, this one also relates to the Jersey Devil, like you had said, with being born deformed and then turning into this horrific creature. Although there's differences there's still, you can draw upon the similarity. And then that just makes the two we're talking about have more similarities, as in they're based on other cryptids, or, well, similar to other cryptids. Shouldn't say based, but they're also over in England, kind of anthropomorphic animal-human hybrid creatures. Just a neat little conclusion that I saw.
I also kind of think that Ratman is kind of based off the story of Goatman, because it's just another group of teenagers that decided to fuck with someone, and it causes them to change in some way.
I don't want to delve too much into believability, but it's kind of like how ancient civilizations all had like similar creation stories and all these gods. It's like there's that similarity there, even though they're from different parts of the world, different areas in the region, but they're all sort of similar. And this is also before times of just really good communication like cell phones or really good mail systems or anything like that. So people are just coming up with these really similar stories.
Yeah, it's more of like just what that you said, more of kids at the playground. Oh, I saw this thing, and it's connected to this or whatever.
Yeah. I find the belief system and just coming up with all these ideas quite fascinating. Anything else we want to talk about before we hop into our main breakdown?
No, that's pretty much all of the stories and history I can think of him.
Yeah, there's no real like actual stories. It's more of just the lore of his origin and
I think it's more of like sightings, I kind of guess. Is that people always would hear him, rat squeaks and stuff, and then feel a presence behind them, but nothing's there.
let's talk about our abilities, characteristics, and stats. Nothing, because it doesn't really delve too much on the looks. Besides, one's a spirit, one's flesh and blood. So we've seen the pictures, as funny as they are, and as creepy. So I just put rat-like features and humanoid body structure.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I mean, from that you can draw, more pointed face, buck teeth, probably some lighter claws, a tail,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. Abilities, extreme agility, just because rats are extremely agile. I know at my work, we've been having a really bad rat problem. And so, you see them moving around. If you're lucky, you can see them, like, climbing up the wiring on the walls and getting, like, all the way up to the giant roof in our building. And they're just going around everywhere. And then they'll climb back down and not fall. They'll climb down the piping and all that.
Yeah. They also fit into more of like a scavenging way because they can go through a lot. They chew through holes in almost anything.
Yeah, have you ever heard of, oh god, the king rat?
No.
So basically, it's where you take a bunch of rats and put them in an enclosed area with no way of getting out. And because, rats have that high survival nature, they'll, like, chew through anything. Like, there's the medieval torture where you put them in a pan of some sorts, put them over somebody, and they'll just chew their way out. Well, the king rat is a similar concept as to where you collect all the rats, put them in this unescapable cage, and they will just start eating each other to survive until it's down to the last one. So they're crazy little motherfuckers.
They are.
Little desperate things.
Side note also, when we first talked about this cryptid, and instead of just like looking up on the internet of like, oh, what is this cryptid? All I can think of, do you remember that one movie we watched?
Oh, Ratman?
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
It was like, it wasn't even like a rat man, it was more of like a mutant rat.
Where they're at, like, the science lab kind
Yeah.
of thing? Yeah, I remember that. And because I think I remember the one scene where the rat man, like, eats somebody that's, like, runs into a fence because they're trying to escape. And that shit was creepy because it was all, like, red and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it would be pretty much the same thing.
That's all I thought of as soon as we talked about this one.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. It's, in retrospect, it's probably a really shitty horror movie.
Oh, it was.
But when you're young, it doesn't really matter.
Because I don't think you ever saw him. It was more of like a shadow, or you heard him and then you'd hear fucking loud noises.
Yeah, it's kind of just like implied that he's
And
there
then they were like,
killing him.
oh shit. Now it's got the spider, and there's going to be a giant mutant spider next movie, and they never made it.
Well, I'm not surprised. I imagine they didn't make too much off that movie. So I did, for abilities, put down extreme survival, just because I feel like that would be fitting.
Yeah.
Alright, let's hop into stats. We'll start with intelligence. Now, rats, I would say, are really smart creatures. I mean, we put them through a lot of experiments with finding things in different labyrinths, as cliche as it is.
They are more of the creatures that you go towards for experiments because they can find shit out pretty quick.
And then we also have to keep in mind that in both origins it does derive from a human. And so we kind of got to base the intelligence, I think, off that. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be a 10 because I think we had similar talks with the Jersey Devil. How while it was born a human, it slowly devolved into a demon. So it's not going to be as intelligent.
Well, yeah, and it's also raised outdoors where not indoors from humans, so it can't be towards human intelligence. But yeah, it's more of they also grew up in the woods, so they can figure shit out
Yeah.
as well.
I guess we should establish which origin we're going with,
Yeah.
or if we should just go with a combination of both to try and give him a little advantage.
I mean, the ghost one doesn't seem like it's more malicious, so I don't even see it as a fighter. You can't really fight a ghost too well.
Yeah. Hence our staying away from them.
I mean, if we want to make it to where it's the reality of the one that is the baby that grew to be a rat, but it has like an ethereal kind of thing, but we can just go straight for just the other one.
Yeah, I think going with straight from Rat Baby is probably the best version of it to go with, because it's not Ghost. We don't have to keep using the excuse, or we won't be able to use the excuse, oh, it's got ghostly powers and all that shit. Okay, then we'll go with our Rat Baby origin story. I'm thinking maybe, because while it is human, it started out as a baby, and I imagine not so long after being born it was put in the subway. So while it does have the human brain, it has the potential.
It wasn't even for Subway. I think that that origin was more towards like later down the line. It was like 1700s, I think.
Okay.
Because it was a guy that was known for doing adultery towards his wife.
Yeah.
And so the newborn kid was cursed to become a rat.
Then when do you think it was abandoned at some point, and if so, when? Because I'm just trying to gauge if it did stay part of the family, how long? Because that would gauge how much it could learn and develop in that time span as a normal human to have that certain level of knowledge and brain power.
Now, this one is a little difficult because I've heard multiple sides. I've heard that he grew up to be a young child as a rat, and then he killed his family, and then he took off in the woods, and they just have sightings of him now. And then there's the other one to where he, right when he got out and he looked like a rat, they kind of threw him out, and he grew up in the woods killing wolves and shit.
Well, I guess if we go with the first one, there'd be a little... I could see the intelligence going up a point, and then if we just go with, he just kind of got dropped off, I would see it as a base low number. What do you think is more fair, going with the more intelligent version?
Yeah, even if it is, it's not going to be too high. He was left as more of a child, so his intelligence couldn't be a 10 at all. I'd almost say it's probably like a 7.
Yeah, I think I was right there. I was on the line of 8 or 7. I think a 7 works. I wouldn't go any lower just because I think the rat intelligence does help out, at least with survival and stuff like that, because for them it's just instinct. But yeah, I think 7's a good point to go with. Now, what about power?
So, it is a man. It doesn't have too sharp of claws. Like, they can hurt. It is it is man-sized.
It does have the teeth.
That's
which
true.
would,
It chews, those teeth can be pretty strong because they chew through metal sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think obviously a lot stronger than the claws it has. I think if you couple that with the human strength, and then this person's also just living out in the woods, so they're going to be very strong.
Well, yeah, they have to survive. They have to become more of a predator instead of just a prey.
Now, I'm not thinking it's any Bigfoot level thing, but I could probably see it being around a 7 or an 8.
I was going to say an 8.
Then I think it'd be fair to roll with just an 8 for him. Now, what about defense? I'm not thinking anything crazy. I mean, rats are more fragile.
Yeah, rats are definitely fragile, and it's a human, but humans can also be pretty fragile. So, if anything, his defense is maybe like a 6.
A 6?
Yeah.
I was thinking 5, but I think I could probably go up to a 6. My only thing is that, depending on what the form actually looks like, I'd be curious as to know whether the feet and arms are like really lanky, like a rat, or if they have more of a muscular build, like a human.
I think why they call him the Ratman in that one is that it's more of has like the face features of a rat and like the tail or like the claws of a rat and teeth of a rat and everything, the tail. So it would be more of a human build, just
with the
rat
features. Yep. All right, then I'd be okay going with a 6. Now here's going to be an interesting one. Mobility.
Oh, it has to be maybe 9, I would think.
I was thinking right at 9.
I couldn't go 10, but it has to be like a 9.
I mean, those little bastards are fast.
Yeah.
Like, you don't... Another reference from my work, you know, when you're just working throughout the night, you'll turn around for like a split second, you'll just see a rat zoom right across. It'll be gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very quick. I mean, they're agile. They're climbing shit, like walls, scaling walls, getting through tight corridors. So I think a 9 is a good place to put it. Especially if it's human size, you couple that with the strength they would have behind it. This thing's moving like a bullet. Damn near close. Okay, what about HP? I'm not thinking it's going to be anything particularly high.
You could also go towards, for rats, they're also fragile and they can't really take too much. Yeah. I mean, they can. Like, you can fucking probably hunt one and it'll hit a wall and it'll still be fine and just run away.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can like throw one down the hallway and it'll still be okay.
But as soon as you like smash it, just because it's so small. But if it's human size, I want to say maybe a 5? 5, 6.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, obviously, I don't think the rat side would contribute too much to having a higher HP pool. I think that would more come from the human side.
I think what gives him the higher HP pool is that he just can survive through a lot. He can take it and be like, okay, well, I gotta deal with what I have.
And if we do bring in stamina, I imagine it's got higher than average stamina because of the rat part. So you said a 5?
Yeah, 5, 6.
I'm thinking 6, just because if you factor in the stamina aspect, I think that would bring it up a notch. Mm-hmm. But besides that, if we didn't factor that in, I'd also be fine with a 5. So it kind of just depends how much we want to bump him up.
We'll just give him a 6.
And then, finally...
Now, he's man-sized. Mm-hmm. But there hasn't been a lot of sightings of him in the woods. No. Like, people will report hearing him maybe, but they never really see him.
And I mean, rats themselves are already really stealthy creatures.
Yeah, you can go days without knowing them. Like, even in cars, you can't even see them until they're on top and they shoot through wires and shit. I'd almost say maybe a 10. They get spotted, but it's not often.
Yeah, I'm thinking a 10, because bringing my work back into it, there's got to be over 100 rats in my work.
Oh, yeah.
But you only see 1, 2, 3 a night. Just because, and you only see them if you're lucky to turn around at the right second or be walking down the right area, and you just see them for a second as they scurry across and crawl all through all this shit and disappear.
It's almost like a chupacabra thing, whereas if they cause any damage, you don't see it until you see the aftermath. You don't see them doing it.
Then yeah, I think it's fair to give him a 10 in stealth. Alright, a quick stat roundup. We have intelligence of 7, power of 8, defense of 6, mobility of 9, HP 6, stealth 10. And this brings us to our next competitor today, the wonderful, mythical cousin, Owlman.
He's also usually the natural predator of rats, so... Owlman history. The Ratman was not the only cryptid making its terrifying debut in the English country. Across the sea in England, another cryptid was haunting the town of Cornwall, England, and making it the nest atop an old church. The Owlman, or the Raptor of Death, is known for sitting and circling the town church late into the night. The first sighting was when 2 young girls were out with their family and saw the creature watching the ground below as it was hovering over the tower of the church. Interestingly, there are ties to extraterrestrials, as there are UFO sightings around the town during the time of the Owlman's first appearance. And is this creature the son of the legendary Mothman, or is it simply a misidentification of an owl?
An interesting thing. We've been sitting on this episode for months now. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that I had found out it was called the Raptor of Death. Mm-hmm. So when we were talking about Lost Tapes and you had said the Death Raptor, I was like, what the fuck? Why? That's so random. And now it's all coming back to me that is an actual name that I have known about.
Yeah. So I've heard that it's just a creature, but in the Lost Tapes episode, they kind of made it seem like it was a paranormal thing.
Really?
Like you can only see it when it wants to see you, or they want you to see it. Other than that, it's like something. In the scene, it was like they were in the forest or whatever, showing because there was a girl that spotted it, and she was showing where she first saw it, and it was attacking. But they're like, I don't see shit. There's nothing here, and you don't really see a glimpse of it until they go back into the church, and it takes an old lady that had seen it before, and it terrified her to her core.
It's kind of an interesting concept because obviously now you all, being as smart as our listeners are, having 100 IQ, or I guess that's kind of low, isn't it?
That's like average, I would say,
Average?
or maybe even low. I don't know.
I think it's a lower average. Being 200 IQ listeners as you are, you've made the connection that there's similarities here to the Point Pleasant Mothman. One of the interesting things is like what you just brought up, how it kind of only shows itself to like
When it wants
to be seen. Because the Owlman kind of does a similar thing. It only shows itself off when it wants to be seen or it has something to warn.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an interesting tie there. I mean, Owlman obviously isn't scaring people away from catastrophe.
No, he's more of kind of covering his land.
Another interesting thing I thought was UFO ties. Mm-hmm. Because I know there was a sighting of strange orbs very high in the sky above the church itself and the town as a whole. Mm-hmm. So there's that connection there. To delve a little bit more, I know the first ever sighting was 1976 by two little girls while their family was out going to dinner. Mm-hmm. And they saw like this strange humanoid creature on top. And it was either perched on top of the church or like flying around the church.
I hear usually it's kind of just like flying around, finding prey.
Yeah.
Which can tend to be either dogs or like big birds.
Yeah.
Or sometimes humans, just casually.
Just doing their thing. Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, there's not, besides like the Lost Tape thing you said, there's not really a lot of talk or anything of this thing being seen anywhere else besides the church. So it kind of just resides there. Maybe it's got a nest up there. Maybe it has some kind of connection to the church from the past.
And again, in Lost Tapes, it has the nest in like the kind of like where the bell is. That's where its nest is. And it just brings all its shit there, but you don't see it throughout the entire thing. And so it's more said as like a haunting spirit that kind of just wanders around the church area.
And I mean, it is cool because there have been, I know there's only like 3 major sightings. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the first one, the little 2 girls, is the easiest to find. The other 2, I've read, like I prefaced before, we haven't touched on this in months now, when like we first discussed doing it and I had the write-ups ready to go. And I mean, Owlman wasn't even supposed to fight Ratman at first. But in the research, you know, I had found all 3 of the origins, or not origins, but like the most popular stories. Since then, I can't find them, or I'm having a difficult time to, because while they're like more of the prominent stories, they're extremely hard to find, and no one really talks about them unless you really go in depth to like research this shit, which is strange. And then I mean, there's been more sightings over the years from after 1976 and the other prominent sightings around the same time. Like, I believe the most recent one was 2004. Not much detail, but there was a report of something like the Owlman in the area. Is there anything else we want to cover?
No, that's pretty much about it for him. I couldn't find anything else besides that.
I wonder if he's just like off-species Mothman. I will say, Mothman looks a lot more like Owlman than he does a moth.
No, I would think he looks more like a moth. It just depends on what kind of rendition you go of him.
I mean, it's definitely... Have you seen the Point Pleasant statue?
Of course I have.
Obviously, Mothman is nothing
no,
like that. That's ridiculous.
No, he's more of how a lot of people portray him. is either he doesn't have arms and it's just his wings.
Yeah.
And then he has the head of a moth, basically. But you never see it because they always have, like, the wings covering it. And so that's the silhouette. And then legs.
I don't know. I feel like he just seems a little closer to an Owlman just because of the wings, and he's got talons. Then you look like at depictions of Owlman, and he doesn't even look like what I mean, I guess he looks like what I would think of an Owlman. He definitely has the more human body to him, and then just some owl features.
Yeah, he has the pointed ears, kind of, and then the big glowing red eyes, and the talons, and...
Yeah. Let's move into characteristics, abilities, and stats. I think that's the first time I've ever said it in order on the show, since I try to purposely not do that. So retreading Ratman characteristics, humanoid body, owl features.
I think he's about 5 to 6 feet tall. He's recorded to be human size. So.
Okay. So yeah, like you said earlier, owl face, talons, wings, most likely a beak.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff with the humanoid body. So there's no like, oh shit, this is a weird body feature. Oh, he has this item.
Oh my god, he has wings. Weird body feature right there.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. But yeah, so he's pretty cut and dry, descriptive wise when it comes to his looks. Ability, the only thing I really have is silent flight, because nobody ever reports hearing him. You would think something of this size
Would be
to
making
stay
noise.
afloat like it does would be making noise. Because even if it's gliding, it would still have to flap its wings to get some air and then glide down. But there's no reported sound coming from this creature at all.
Yeah, it kind
Or
of seems
flying
like
wise.
owls more or less kind of try and glide so that they can more sneak up on their prey. Because owls will always usually swallow their prey whole, or sometimes in chunks, but...
I think as soon as you said that, I kind of had this epiphany. That is where I got the silent flight ability from, because I couldn't think of any... There's no, like, future sight or anything like that from Owlman. So I did my owl research. And the silent flight is, like, one of their natural abilities, because they tend to glide more. Like, they swoop down to grab the prey.
They're
Hence
also...
the silent
That's why
flight.
they're seen more in trees, because they'll just go from tree to tree.
So, boom. Our one ability... I mean, obviously, these characters, cryptids, are going to have things like probably night vision, because they're animals, definitely with Owlman at least.
Right.
They'll just have their more animal-like abilities, but that was the only one that I can think of. Okay, this is an animal ability, but it's also really interesting and can play out in the fight. Moving on to stats, first we start with intelligence.
So, owls are more seen as intelligent animals anyways. Every time you think of wisdom, it's always an owl as, like, the big thing. I would think they would be maybe 9 for him.
A 9, huh?
Because owls are pretty good hunters. They always want to go at night because they're harder to see. And how they approach everything is more smarter than a lot of other animals.
Yeah, I would agree. If we tie in... I mean, obviously I'm not going to. I agree with the 9. But if somebody would want some possible evidence to cite, I mean, we can go back to the UFO sightings. You could tie into it that this creature is extraterrestrial, and that the aliens are leaving it here. And obviously, if it's given an assignment by aliens, it's smart enough to comprehend it. Then you could even justify giving it a 10, which we're not going to. I'm just using this as a possible example.
There's also more paranormal. Ghosts tend to be more intelligent because they've seen death, and so they know a lot more because they've been around.
But yeah, I think the 9 fits. I mean, like you said, they're very intelligent animals. If it does have any more aspects of a human side to it, which we didn't talk about much in the history, but that's just because it never really gets brought up. But that could definitely boost its intelligence as well. Let's hop down to power. Probably going to run into some similarities with Mothman here, which it's been so long I don't even remember Mothman.
I don't know. I almost think this one's a little more powerful than Mothman.
Yeah?
So what was Mothman again? He was like a 6, right? 5?
You know, it's been so long. Let me pull it up. He only had an intelligence of 6, which is odd. but he had a power of 7.
Yeah, I think this one would maybe be one number up. Because this one is known to have, like, sharp talons. It's what owls are known for the
And
most.
owls have more of a bulky build to them, too, which would
Yeah.
imply more muscle mass.
And their beaks are also, like, really strong.
I think I'd be okay going with would you say an 8?
Yeah.
Now, this is always a tough one when we come up to flight-based creatures, just because of how the science of flight works. But let's talk about defense. What I'm talking about with the flight creatures and it being more of a careful thing we need to tread on is that to be able to fly, in reality, birds and creatures that fly have to have hollowed bones so that they're light enough to glide across the air.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think the defense is going to be low, but it being an owl creature, I mean, owls are heavily covered in feathers, which,
Yeah.
while not the most defensive of all kind of fur, feather, scale, kind of natural armors you can have, I would still say it provides some sort of armor.
It does. It wouldn't be too much. It might move it up like a point. Otherwise, defense is, I would almost say, a 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much right there. While it does, you would think a bulky build, it has the humanoid body, which, if it's just a 5 to 6 foot, maybe more slender or a little more muscular human build, its defense isn't going to be anything to jump at. I mean, I think a 5 would work.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's talk mobility, which could
It's a
be
10.
a 10.
I think it's 10. It's a flighter. It's a flight animal, so already it has pretty good mobility in the air.
In the air, obviously glides across the ground. That's a big thing.
And then it's also part human, so you would think it'd most likely be able to run pretty fast too.
But it does have talons,
That's true.
so it won't have feet to just sprint across the ground.
Counter argument: it could always just thrust itself and kind of glide above the ground. I couldn't even go as low as maybe like a 9.
I think I would have to drag you down to a 9. While obviously being able to fly, I think, is one of the greatest advantages you can have in this arena, which is one thing I think the Jersey Devil had going for it, was that it had a humanoid body and can fly, but its flight was more of a magical thing because the wings weren't really that big, so it didn't have to have hollowed bones. So it doesn't run into the problem that a lot of these have. But the tech of being able to fly is just extremely overpowered. But at the same time, if you're in kind of like a wooded area or just somewhere with cover, I think the flight isn't as useful and can be more disadvantageous. I just don't think I can give it a 10. While flight is OP, I think not being able to walk on the ground and its competitor being a ground-based animal takes away from it.
I would think it'd be able to walk on the ground. Now, it being an owl, it's not going to do that. It's more of like a kind of quick dash, go up again, and then a quick dash.
I should have said I don't think it can move quickly
Yeah, no,
on the
it's
ground.
not
I
running.
think it can like land, walk around, but
Yeah.
I just meant more like a sprint or something like that. The highest I could go would probably be a 9. I don't think I could go to a 10. Now, if it could run, just regular run, I could give it a 10. Just because this thing flies really well, glides very fast, has the silent flight, which I guess is more stealth, but whatever. It doesn't have a giant build to where it kind of makes it worse or harder to move around quickly in combat. And then if you would throw the ability to sprint across the ground, which I wouldn't discount it being able to, I just don't see it doing that.
It also has a heavier build, which helps it fucking when it needs to. It just can dive bomb anything.
Yeah. I think if it had all that plus being able to sprint on the ground and maybe a slimmer build, I could justify giving it a 10. But right now, without more evidence, I can only give it a 9 at most. So if that's what you want to go with.
Yeah, that's fine.
Alright, let's move to HP. If we're using Mothman, now, looking back, as we've refined our abilities to determine stats through facts, logic, critical thinking, I look at the Mothman stats and I'm like, yikes. When we did episode 5, we really should have changed some more stuff around. But I look at the HP, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's too far off the mark. It has a 5. And I consider Mothman to be more bulky than Owlman.
I consider Owlman to be more bulky than Mothman, to be honest. Now, you also got to consider that Owlman, of what he's eating, he's not eating just rats or anything. He's eating dogs, he's eating birds.
Bigger creatures.
He's eating humans sometimes. So he's getting a lot of more protein and muscle.
More nutrition.
Because what owls usually do when they get those little sacs is when they swallow them whole, they're absorbing all the muscles and everything and just leaving the bones.
Yeah, I can see your point there. I guess he would be more bulky, at least body-wise. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking then for his stat?
I don't think he's a 5. He could be maybe like a 6. Possibly a 7 is the highest I could go. He's not going to go any higher than that, but he's somewhere around that range.
I think I'm probably more comfortable going with an HP of 6. Mm-hmm. Slightly higher than the Mothman, which I think is fine. And then we'll finish it up with stealth. I think this comes... his ability of silent flight is a big factor here. His more natural, just dark color tone for his feathers and stuff is going to play a big part into his stealth, night vision. I don't think it's crazy high, because I think he has been seen just casually in his sightings. Whether or not that's purposeful is hard to determine. I think that does detract. If he was seen, like, attacking or wanting to be seen, making a scene, it'd be different, but this is just him casually going about.
Yeah, I think he's more searching for prey, and then the humans come up, and he doesn't see him as like a threat, so he doesn't care that they're there.
Yeah, which is fair, but personally, I still see you being casually seen, or you're like, oh, there's things over there, but it's not my prey, I'll just let him see it in me. I still think that shows a weaker side of stealth then. Yeah.
He also does hunt at night. He knows to hunt at night, which is a big factor in the stealth. Knowing when the time to strike is always a good one. I don't want to give him maybe a 10. No. But 8? Yeah, around 8 somewhere. It's not going to be low, I don't think. Because all these things stacking, there's a couple downfalls, but mostly are everything you need.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I think an 8's good. I think he naturally blends in with his environment. All the times I've seen owls, it's because their eyes give them away. Mm-hmm. If they had their eyes closed or they weren't looking at a light, I would have never seen them because they blend in so well with the dark and with their environment. And hell, even during the day, if it's like a brown feathered owl, they can blend in with trees pretty well. And then I think coupled with the silent flight and all his other abilities that he would naturally have, I think that puts him in a pretty high stealth. Mm-hmm. So we can give him an 8. Now, our quick roundup before we hop into today's main event. Characteristics: humanoid body, owl features. Abilities: silent flight. Stats: intelligence 9, power 8, defense 5, mobility 9, HP 6, stealth 8. Moving up to Ratman. Characteristics: rat features, humanoid body. Abilities: extreme agility, extreme survival. Stats: intelligence 7, power 8, defense 6, mobility 9, HP 6, stealth 10. They're definitely pretty well rounded. They definitely up each other in certain areas. So it's going to be an interesting fight. What are we thinking for area?
You know what? It's already in England. We may as well just go to the church. Ratman's been having a hard time finding resources. He goes to the church to look and find stuff to eat and scavenge around for. And that's when Owlman sees him being a bigger predator and not a human, obviously. He goes for the first strike.
I say we up the creepy factor. I say we put them abandoned church with a cemetery in the middle of a light forest. Just because Ratman, we get his forest, Owlman, we get his church. It's not too forested, so Owlman can still utilize his agility, while it has enough forage for the Ratman to possibly use as cover. But Owlman goes for the first strike.
I'm thinking so, yeah.
I would agree. I mean, he's definitely the more aggressive, seemingly, of the two creatures, hunting-wise.
Yeah.
Now, he's going to have the sneak attack. But he also only has a sneak attack of 8. But he does have silent flight. So I think even with Ratman's above average intelligence for just a base creature, his good stealth, it'd be kind of hard for him to perceive this attack coming.
Yeah, unless there's like a light somewhere and it shines and you just see the red eyes. There's no way you can see Owlman coming and hear him. So he's definitely landing that first strike, and it might be a hefty blow, depending on what he would do.
I would think so. And I think the only way I see Ratman getting out of this is his 9 mobility. And you could say last second he notices, he can hear the whooshing when it gets like really close and dodges. But even then you have to factor in that Owlman is flying down really fast. Like he's picked up a lot of speed.
He's got to be going at least 60 miles an hour down that.
Yeah.
And if even with the 9 mobility from Ratman, I think he's getting hit and at least gashed on like the side or something.
Yeah, I think regardless he's still taking a hit. I think he could probably avoid an instant kill, but I think the damage is still going to be hefty for the most part. But now Ratman's aware. Injured, but aware. He also doesn't have high defense or HP, so the attack, while not a killing blow, is still going to do a lot of damage. What do you think would happen next?
I think Owlman, right after that, he's about to get ready to launch off. Because I think, if anything, if Ratman causes the, like, oh, I move, it will make Owlman lose his, oh, I'm going to bounce up and go. So it kind of fucks him up, and he just lands, and he's about to go, and that's when Ratman's mobility comes in, and the survival instinct, so he's not really feeling too much, and that's when he tries and grabs Owlman before he takes off.
Yeah, no, I like that. Him landing back down, Ratman using his higher ground speed. I also think another possible outcome, he swoops down, he misses, Ratman being as quick as he is, and his amount of intelligence could chase the Owlman back up the trees he's going to, and then catch him off guard like that. But I say we go with, as Owlman tries to get back up to a post, Ratman gets him. I think it'd be pretty lethal if he goes for a bite anywhere on the body.
Yeah. If anything, it's more Owlman takes off, he grabs his leg, and then with his claws, and then he takes his mouth and bites his leg, which is going to deal a lot of shit to Owlman, because now he's kind of down a leg. If anything, it's going to cause him to lose balance, and Owlman will kind of, if I see him going more towards the forest after that, and fucking trying to hit Ratman off the tree or something.
I was thinking more of a lethal tactic. Now, Ratman, obviously he's been in the forest his entire life. He's seen all different kinds of predator. One of which would be avian creatures. And he would know that the wings are like their main aspect of themselves. I would think he would go for a bite on the wing.
Yeah, he could probably do that too.
Weakening the maneuverability of Owlman, which I'm not saying he wouldn't be able to use the wing, but if he did, I think it would definitely be slower. It'd cause a lot of pain to use. And so if he chooses not to, I could see it being a one-on-one brawl right there.
I think, if anything, he bites the wing, Owlman comes crashing down, and then tries and flings Ratman into a tree. Either way, Ratman hits the fucking tree, falls to the ground, as Owlman falls to the ground, and now they're on the ground.
Okay, so I think we established now that they're both on the ground. Ratman still has that large gash in him, and while he's still been able to fight, it is slowly draining his stamina. And now, Owlman has lost his one advantage, the air.
I don't think it counts him out of, like, soar. It counts him out of he's able to literally just hover and stay in the air.
Yeah.
Now it's more of like a glide that maybe Mothman would have, where he can jump up, then go down, jump up, go down.
Well, and I also think it'd be less, what's the word I'm looking for? Less aimed.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to use a wing that's sustained a lot of damage, especially with hollow bones. And I think it's also going to be less fast. So I think he could keep doing that, his strategy. But I think it'd get to the point where he's doing it so much, now he's getting tired. So he kind of has to stop, or else he will be drained before Ratman is completely drained himself. Because Ratman, his dodging, or the dodges he'd have to do have become way easier to avoid that attack now.
If anything, Owlman still can land some hits off of just that. Because Ratman is going to be slowed down by that gash. I don't think those gashes are like, I'm scratched on the side. It's like it's deep.
It's a deep gash, or deep few. I don't know, I kind of just see... I still think even with the injury, he's still... The impact on his movement isn't as high as it is for the Owlman. Because I think the Owlman's whole movement is just completely interrupted with a broken wing, as to where Ratman, he'd be slower, but it's not going to interfere with his whole movement.
Yeah. I think Owlman's hits are going to land a couple times, maybe. Not as lethal as the first killing blow he tried to do.
No, definitely not.
Ratman's going to have some gashes on him. And this is going to get kind of a bloody fight. Because Ratman still can also get Owlman.
Yeah, I think he's still got his claws too. While not as sharp, they're still there.
Yeah, he's not biting him, but he is definitely scratching him as he comes down.
Yeah.
And so now it's... If anything, I don't really see Owlman winning at this point. Now that his biggest advantage he had... It's not going to work on him.
Yeah.
And so, what I see is that Owlman finally makes a mistake to where he glides to the right and misses Ratman, and he hits the ground, and that's when Ratman goes to town on him.
Okay, I like that. I do see this fight coming to an end while they're on the ground. My thing is, while I think Ratman's most lethal attack is biting, that's going to be a little harder to do because now Owlman is playing defensive, and he's got the talons, which are way sharper, and they have a lot more reach than the bite, which I don't think they'd have as much force now that he can't use, like, speed to power them up. They're still really sharp.
They're basically, how I see them is that they're kind of knives. You don't have to have speed, you just have to have the accuracy to dig into them. And so, if anything, how I see Owlman winning this is that if he kind of just tries to play dead, having the higher intelligence and maybe catch him off guard, playing dead for Ratman to get close, and then he tries and lunges his foot to like stab Ratman in the chest.
So I'll play devil's advocate, since you obviously brought up your statement of how Owlman could win. I see Ratman putting that stealth 10 to use here. He knows he's got his prey grounded. I imagine Owlman's like looking for some cover or something, so he's moving back. This is the time for Ratman to disappear into the woods, come up behind, and just take a big bite out of Owlman's head or neck, and just pretty much finish him off.
Yeah,
Like a bite from him, that close, that quick, I think it's going to kill.
It's kind of like a 50-50, because either one can win. I think more Ratman's way is good, but he has to have some gnarly gashes on him too. So even though he can do stealth, I don't know if it will be as stealthy though, because he has to be leaving a fucking trail of blood as he leaves. And Owlman, having night vision, can see where the blood's going.
I would agree, but I also think there's a certain amount of panic after having taken so much damage, and you're more focused on, I have to try and get away, I have to try and defend myself and survive, so you're not really picking up on that kind of minute detail.
I will also play this card. His intelligence is 10. So
Who's?
Ratman. Or not Ratman, Owlman is
9.
9. It's still a 9. It's basically...
It is a 9.
It is literally Goatman's intelligence. And I see him knowing... He's like, okay, I am down a lot, but I can get an advantage through this somehow.
Okay.
So instead of just getting up, I see him still playing dead.
I still think even if he is playing dead, Ratman would still be cautious. He's no 9, obviously. He still has an intelligence of 7. So I don't think he's going to be foolish enough as to approach at a dangerous angle for himself.
Yeah, I'll give you that. And it's also, I think rats more can smell death usually. Like they know when something's in and when something's not. So he probably could tell the bluff.
I think, well, we've talked about quite an interesting fight here. I think it's going to come down to when we pick a winner, which you prefer. Who wins the long-term battle, or who wins the quickest, or who wins the most often.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, honestly, I gotta go with Owlman. I think when we brought up at first his sneak attack, quick attack, I mean, Ratman's never really gonna get that first sneak attack off. Owlman has the height advantage easily. Mm-hmm. He's going to see it. He's got his natural night vision. While Ratman could possibly see him, I think most of the time, Owlman's going to have the advantage. Most of the time, he's going to get the sneak attack off. And when he gets it off, it's going to be either an instant kill or a lethal attack. And while I played devil's advocate for Ratman, I think even on the ground, Owlman can defend himself well with his talons. So even if the fight is drawn to the ground, he's going to be able to fight off Ratman a majority of the time. And Ratman's biggest weakness is he has to get up close and personal to use his bite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a he has to sneak attack to really effectively use it. So personally, I would give it to Owlman.
Yeah, I would say Ratman, but Owlman's kind of got too much going for him. He's got the intelligence, he's got the mobility, he's got the flight, he's got the night vision. He's a natural predator to rats.
So are we giving it to Owlman?
I would have to say so.
Alright, Mothman's superior and or lesser cousin is welcomed into the Hall of Cryptid versus Cryptid champions. And we will see Ratman return when we hit Cryptid versus Cryptid Rehash and Mashup, Episode 4. Until then, let's talk some believability. What are your thoughts going into Ratman?
Okay. So, naturally, I'm not a believer in ghosts too much and like paranormal and stuff, so I can't believe that story of the paranormal. Why it's an interesting story. It's like a Goatman one, where you hear the story and you're like, holy shit, that's fucked up, but I can't believe it. And then for the adultery one, I do like more of the 1700s going back in the old days and something wrong goes on and you get cursed. I like that, so that's more believable towards me. But I still can't fully believe it.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I think we have damn near the same view of paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't really take it. Well, I think it's an interesting story and highlights how shitty people can be. The paranormal version is obviously the weakest one for me, which I guess you could debate both are paranormal, but the one where he's actually beaten and turns into a ghost, I don't consider believable. The second one, more believable, and I think it could have some base in reality. Maybe the kid doesn't actually turn into a rat, but he is born deformed, and obviously this is a different time. People don't survive a lot, or if you're born with some deformity, you're not going to live very long. They just don't have the medicine. So maybe child is born with a deformity, family can't keep up, boom, dropped it off in the forest.
It's also, I think, more of early days. A deformity was a sign of like you're some, not really a devil, but you're not right.
Yeah.
And so they would usually try and kill, like deaf people. They would always like shun, and so they would die usually because they didn't know what to do.
So I definitely think there's some basis in this story. Do I believe it's true? Probably not. I don't really buy the whole human gets corrupted into monster kind of thing. But I definitely think there's some basis in reality to the second Ratman origin. As far as Owlman goes, I still have the same exact stance that I do with Mothman. I don't believe it. Just to rehash my thoughts, because we've talked about it multiple times bringing up Mothman. I think the best theory is that it's some kind of gargoyle creature. I think that's the most fun. It would explain why there's only few sightings, because he just comes and goes when he needs to or wants to. Him, it's a little less unbelievable, just because he's only coming around whenever, as to where Owlman only awakens when there's a tragedy.
You mean Mothman?
Mothman, sorry. Mothman only awakens when there's a tragedy. Owlman just comes and goes as he pleases. I think the alien theory is intriguing. It could imply that maybe Owlman isn't really a creature, but like a drone of sorts. Mm-hmm. But I don't really like when cryptids I don't want to say devolved, but it divulges this alien cross-universal creature. Because I know that there's a theory of Bigfoot being an extra-dimensional creature that for some reason just warps into our dimension and then warps back to his for whatever fucking reason. And so I don't really like the alien theory, but it's there. I can't say I'm the biggest believer in Owlman since he's practically Mothman, but in England.
Now, I can believe Owlman a little more. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, but it is a paranormal one more towards me. Because it's only seen around a church. Everyone can't really see it when it attacks or anything. They see it when he wants them to see it. And so it's more believable just because it can be a spirit that's haunting a church with the cemetery around, causing death among dogs, birds, and all that. Alien ones, I know they tried to do that just for me. They're like, Roger loves aliens, so we gotta get him to believe Owlman. So the aliens brought him here. But I can't believe that. That's kind of just out of the ordinary.
It's weird. Maybe I'll tell you about this like theory of how we got to Earth or how people believe humans got to Earth that deals with aliens, but it's like the same concept that they kind of just dropped it off for whatever reason. But yeah, I think that wraps up what we're talking about. You've got our stances. You've got the results of the fight. This is our first of 4 matches. Official lineup for this season. The next round of fights I think is still undetermined. I have a couple ideas. Some pretty cool cryptids. I mean, we're going to find some cool ones to bring about this time. Dive into maybe a couple more Bigfoots if we really hit bottom of the barrel stuff.
Maybe a couple lizard men as well. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, we basically did Mothman all over again. And last season we did Bigfoot twice. Until then, I think that's going to be me and Roger from Cryptid vs. Cryptid signing off this week.
Later.
See ya.